government's recently announced a crackdown on illegal working and immigration crime. So we were just looking at what kind of businesses have been fined or caught hiring illegal workers in the capital, and what illegal working looks like in London. I'm Rachael Burford, the Chief Political Correspondent at the London Standard. Obviously there are certain businesses that you associate perhaps with illegal working more than others. Places like, car washes, nail salons, some of those barber shops that have sprung up across high streets across the country. They're often reported on as places where illegal working happens and associated with that kind of crime, etc. But in London, when we were looking at the figures and what kind of businesses had been fined or had been caught hiring illegal workers, there was a lot of places that you might not necessarily expect, very exclusive restaurants in very exclusive parts of the city, big name brands, hotels. So it was sort of interesting to see how illegal working is happening in some sort of premier establishments in the capital, and just places that you wouldn't necessarily expect it. Around 50 businesses in London were fined over £1.8 million for hiring illegal workers. That accounts to hundreds of people being arrested, and that they are just figures between July and the end of September last year. The government have now announced this extra crackdown in the last few months, so we're expecting to see those really skyrocket in the next round of figures. It's difficult to say what exactly what workers' motivations are. A lot of these people that are caught illegally working are coming from quite poverty-stricken countries. Some are coming from countries where there is war, and there is certainly a lot of poverty. They come here perhaps illegally, or they overstay their visas, or they come here on student visas where they're only allowed to work a certain amount of hours, and they find they just cannot survive here without working more hours. In terms of their motivation, some people are promised jobs by people trafficking gangs, and when they get here they are not perhaps the jobs that they thought they were going to be getting. The vast majority come here for a better life and to work, and they find themselves trapped in situations, I think, which they were perhaps not expecting. As part of the investigation, we looked at some of the places that have been caught, and some of the workers there reported working in excess of 65 hours a week for very little money, in some cases £6 an hour, half minimum wage. So what you've got there is a workforce in your kitchen or restaurant or business who are totally reliant on you. They don't get sick pay, they don't get holiday pay, they don't expect or are not entitled to the workers' rights that British workers would expect. The Home Office has announced a big crackdown on illegal working. This manifests as increasing the fines for businesses who are caught hiring illegal workers. It used to be £15,000 per person. That's gone up to a minimum of £45,000 per person, and will escalate if you're caught multiple times. They've worked with delivery apps, for example, Deliveroo, Just Eat, Uber, to ensure there's a sort of crackdown on people not, someone who has got the right to work in the UK, setting up an account with one of those apps to deliver food, and then sharing that with someone who does not have the right to work in the UK. There's been sort of crackdowns on that. And they're also targeting the people trafficking gangs, which are the people that are smuggling people across the channel, and they're working with other countries to dismantle that business model that those gangs have. So there are loads of global issues driving the problem of illegal working in the UK. You've got people coming here from war-torn countries, from poverty-stricken countries, who are seeking out a better life here, and think they will be able to get a better job, send money home, build a better life for them and their family. And then you also have people who are trafficked here under the control of these people trafficking gangs and do not have much of a choice. What we did see in the investigation was that some of the bigger chains that where illegal workers have been found, places like the Marriott Hotel, those workers that were here and working illegally were actually hired via agencies. So, the big company expects the agency to check someone's right to work in the UK. That obviously did not happen, and it is the agency that bears the brunt of the fines, but also, it is the Marriott Hotel on Regent's Park that is raided by the Home Office. One of the, restaurants that we looked at in the piece is a place called Faya Cottage. That was raided by immigration in December. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the restaurant do quite quirky sort of TikTok videos, which have gained hundreds of thousands of likes across their social media accounts that claim to have the best dumplings in London. And it is a restaurant that was used as a set in the Netflix series Black Doves. And what they found when they were there was that half the staff on shift were actually working illegally. And I think what was especially interesting about this place was not just that it has become quite a sort of famous and well-established dim sum restaurant in London, but that the workers in those kitchens, one of them came to the UK in 2012, had been caught working illegally in a different restaurant in 2018, had been arrested, absconded, and his application for asylum is still being assessed all these years later. There was another restaurant as well, Royal China in Baker Street, which has actually faced 3 immigration raids since 2018. It's been stripped of its licence, and it's been issued £470,000 worth of fines over those 3 immigration raids, which found 20 illegal workers there. And this is, a moderate-sized company. They've got 6 restaurants in London. They've got 1 in Dubai, and they when they were sort of hauled before Westminster Council's licensing committee to sort of answer questions and about why they were hiring illegal workers, no one showed up from the company, but they have always paid their fines. Workers there told the Home Office that they were earning £6 an hour and working 66 hours a week. Charities have warned that a crackdown in one industry on illegal working just moves it to another industry. You have these big people trafficking gangs operating, providing workers for certain places. You then have people who are here who need to work to survive and need jobs. And they're willing to forego, a lot of workers' rights to work somewhere. And you can see by the people that are caught in working in these kitchens, working in these jobs, that many of them have been here for over a decade, or for many years, and they just, they get caught, they get arrested, they abscond again. They find someone else to go. Some of these people cannot be deported because of the countries they're coming from. Keir Starmer said earlier this year that the UK had been a soft touch, was the phrase he used, on illegal working for far too long. But for the people already here that need jobs, they find themselves in an impossible situation. What the Home Office is trying to do is target and dismantle those people trafficking gangs. But with these increased number of raids, what you also see is actually the victims of exploitation facing the sort of biggest punishment here. Although they're hoping, I think, the government, that the increase in fines will put off more companies from hiring illegal workers.